In Japan, I learned that broken things aren't meant to be hidden. They're meant to be highlighted. If you've heard of the art of Kintsugi, you're already familiar with this idea of, in Japan, they have a tradition where if a piece of pottery is broken, they seal it back with gold. So there's gold in the cracks and you end up with something that's so much more beautiful than what you started with. I think about this in terms of the healing journey, right? There are moments in life where our heart is broken, and in those places is where we can find the most beauty. Rumi says, keep your eyes on the broken places, for that is where the light shines through. When I visited Japan, I really came to understand what that meant. Japan is one of the best destinations to visit. There was so many things that stood out to me about visiting in Japan, about what I experienced, and I do think that there's hardly any way to visit Japan and not emerge as a new person. I just think there are some places on this planet that do have an impact. And those are the places that you often hear about. Those are the ones on the bucket list. The pyramids of Giza, visiting the volcanoes in Hawaii. You just are impacted in a way that's hard to put into words. And there's so much about the Japanese culture and lifestyle that felt so different to me in a way that was profound. I'll start by saying that being in Tokyo felt like an inverted version of New York City. There are some areas where just as crowded as Times Square, and somehow the energy was different. Because the city is incredibly safe, I think that's a huge part of it. It meant that my guard wasn't up. The other thing that was really interesting is there weren't any trash cans. And really the experience of grab and go food or eating in public wasn't really common. If you did have something, you had to carry those wrappers with you all the way home. There was also these vending machines that had hot drinks in addition to cold drinks. Funny enough, the temperature of the tea and hot chocolate was perfect. Hi, I'm Kalima Fergus Ayele. I'm an international school leader and CEO and founder of Round Trip Ticket Home. At Round Trip Ticket Home, we support schools and school leadership teams using design thinking tools to create cultures of belonging and connection. Why design thinking? Well, because it's a human-centered approach to problem solving. It allows you to use empathy to really understand the challenges and take time to define the issue. Then you move into using your imagination to create a vision of what you want to have as an outcome. And finally, you prototype and iterate your solutions throughout the process. And then you just do that over and over again. We call the company Round Trip Ticket Home because essentially we believe that we're all on a round trip ticket home. We go through these experiences like this hero's journey. The hero's journey, if you're not familiar, is the basis of all of our storytelling. We can follow that storyline in some of our common mythologies, such as Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, where she finds herself lost in this strange land, and on a journey to return back home, she meets some companions. A scarecrow who is looking for intelligence, a tin man looking for heart, and a lion looking for courage. And when they get to the powerful Wizard of Oz, they're surprised to find that he has no real power. In fact, they had everything that they needed within them. And so I see that as something that we're facing in this moment. A recognition that we can't always rely on someone else to come and fix our problems. We may have to be the ones that do the work for ourselves and for each other. As the Hopi prophecy says, we are the ones we've been waiting for. So as I prepare for my own journey, in my next chapter, I love sharing with you my experience about traveling around the world on a round trip ticket, where I had an opportunity to visit some countries, namely Spain, India, Vietnam, Singapore, and finally Japan, before returning back to my own home, which is New York. And so in Japan, I find myself overwhelmed intrigued by what I find to be a culture that is so different from the one that I'm used to. And I have to say that before visiting Japan, I hadn't really studied anything about Japanese culture. And I know there are many people who study the language and the history and have such an interest in the culture, be it the popular culture of this time or even the ancient culture. Well, that wasn't me. I actually ended up visiting Japan because my oldest was there on a semester abroad. And I saw that as a unique opportunity to see a country that I might not get to visit otherwise. And so as a family, we decided we would spend Thanksgiving holiday there. I had no idea what I was walking into. I was curious about what the food would be like, and honestly, I was surprised to find that there were things that I thought would be less expensive because I was in Japan, and they weren't. Sushi wasn't less expensive. High quality Kobe beef was not less expensive. It was probably around the same price as you would find in the US. But I had a wonderful time, and the quality of the experience I had was magnificent. I just found that everything that was done there was done with such care and precision. Even the interactions, greeting, were all done with such intense care and such attention. People were engaged, but they were also a bit withdrawn. It's a closed culture, and so in many ways I saw how it might be hard to build a community there as a foreigner. I'm a very outgoing or extroverted person, and Japan felt very introverted in many ways. I had a chance to visit Tokyo. I also had a chance to visit Kyoto, and so I was able to take the bullet train. And one of the experiences that stood out to me was in getting something to eat on the train, I ended up picking up a self-heating meal of rice and meat. I could pull a string and it triggered this heating pack beneath the food that heated the food to this perfect temperature. Honestly, I was blown away. As someone who has a degree in chemistry and is often taught a lot of these principles of exothermic reactions, seeing and experiencing something designed in such a practical application was a wonderful experience. Overall, I saw so many ways in which Japan had really created a culture that centered humans and took care of all of the people, and I admired that. I would love to know if you have more questions about Japan because I want to talk more about my experience there. So leave comments below and I'll try to answer your questions. In the meantime, I'm going to take the next video to really talk about which of these cultures impacted me the most, although quite possible I've already given that away. Okay, I'll see you next time. Bye.